Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Green Square Talks Battlebots podcast. Yeah, right for this is the episode 9 review podcast, and as of right now, it's just me, and then for this one, but Civlian Arc said he's going to be on in a little bit, so at some point soon, we're going to have a second person here on this podcast. Yeah, so basically, this podcast is going to be the episode 9 review, where the plan is to go over all 7 of these fights, share opinions, and talk about each of these 7 robots' upcoming matchups, basically. So, yeah, you kind of get the idea here, and it should be a fun time. We got quite a few fun fights here, quite a few statement victories, and several robots have been looking good. Other robots kind of dug themselves into a little bit of a hole, unfortunately. But yeah, regardless, it was a great episode overall, in my opinion, and I can't wait to start talking about these fights. So, yeah, if you like what you see, obviously like and subscribe, and comment down below your thoughts on the episode, of course. Absolutely always welcome to. And yeah, whenever Civlian Arc and if anybody else does hop on, definitely subscribe to them as well, because all my co-hosts definitely produce lots of great content of their own for on their YouTube channels. So it's really cool stuff to check out. And there's Civlian Arc right there. So uh, yeah, how's it going,
Oh,
Civ?
I'm good. I'm good. I fell asleep for like 2 hours, so that was fun.
I got back from a basketball game about 45 minutes ago. So I'm in the
Dope.
same boat. But yeah, let's go ahead and start talking about the first match then. So first by the
What's
episode,
the
we get
first match?
Gruff and Witch Doctor. And by the way, today's Civlian Arc's birthday as when we're recording this, so comment down below, wish Civlian Arc a happy birthday, of course. So, hope it's
Yeah,
been
thanks,
awesome, Civ.
man.
So,
Yeah, it's been pretty good.
awesome. Right. Yeah, so the lead-off fight of the episode led off with Witch Doctor and Gruff. And this fight pretty much went how I expected it was going to, basically. But then, gotta say, though, still, that was a massacre by Witch Doctor to take it to the pretty well armored Gruff, and definitely this was one of Witch Doctor's more destructive showings so far this season. So, Civlian Arc, you want to share your thoughts on this match?
Yeah, for sure. I knew that this fight was gonna be like kinda close, but like Witch Doctor hits like a freight train, so it would be hard for Gruff to handle it. Although Gruff did get under Witch Doctor a few times, so they did have some low ground moments. It's just that once Witch Doctor got that like a good hit on the side, Gruff's drive was like looking a little bouncy. It was kind of shaking a little bit, and kind of all you need to make a. If you like make just like one mistake or there's like one thing going wrong with your robot, Michael Lately is just gonna capitalize on that, and that's what happened.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's worth mentioning this is first time this season and first time in the main competition that we've seen Witch Doctor with forks. They were testing out a forks configuration for this one, from what I heard, and it looked like it worked pretty well for them. Like Michael Lately did a great job driving it. Like it looked like he was having some difficulties driving Witch Doctor when Witch Doctor used forks against Glitch during Battlebots Champions. But it looked like it was driving smoothly. But like Civilian Arc said right there, yeah, Gruff had some good fork moments in this one. Gruff did perform better in this fight than I kind of thought they were going to, but still, there was a few driving errors by Sam, and Mike definitely took advantage of that and definitely tore apart Gruff and eventually managed to disable drive. And we got a fuel tank explosion. It might not have been as big as what we'd see from like uppercuts, but it was still pretty awesome to see. And plus, the fact that Witch Doctor was only spinning at half power in this one just shows how scary of a vertical spinner that robot is this season. Just how hard that thing hits. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that. Regardless, though, that was another great win by Witch Doctor. Witch Doctor's 3-0 right now, eyeing an undefeated regular season and possibly the number one seed when we get to bracket, maybe if they win their fourth fight. Gruff, on the other hand, kind of in a hole right now with a 1-2 record. Probably needs to win their next fight with Malice, but let's go ahead and talk about their next fights. So, Civilian Arc, you want to talk about their next matchups? Where Gruff has Malice and Witch Doctor is Minotaur.
So Gruff versus Malice would be interesting to me because Gruff's always been more designed against horizontal spinners. Anyways, it's been since Gruff is more tanky and its low ground has never been like a huge factor. It's kind of built to take on Malice in a way, but it's also hard to say because Malice's driving is really good, and we'll see in the fight where we'll talk about them, and their weapons hidden pretty hard now as well. So. Um, I think I'll go with Malice for this one just because it seems like Malice has all its kinks worked out. Well, it did kind of die at the end of the Valkyrie fight, but it's still hitting hard and they're driving well at the beginning, and that might be all they need. So I'll go for Malice there. Witch Doctor Minotaur is a toss up to me because they both have strengths and weaknesses that counter each other. So it's hard to really say, but I think I'll go Witch Doctor for this one, but it's a toss up.
Yeah, absolutely. As for me, Gruff and Malice, I kind of expect Malice is probably going to go with forks on this one and probably go with the drumstick for this one and try to get underneath Gruff and try to prevent Gruff from pushing it around quite a bit because I think that's one big advantage Malice could take at least in this one because I feel they'd probably outwedge Gruff's forks with their own, but who knows? But I bet that'll be a good fight at least. Definitely be a good test for Malice's reliability because we have seen them have issues in really all three of their fights, and I think in a fight with Gruff is a real like prove it match to see if they've got all those kinks worked out. We'll be talking about Malice though in their next fight, at least in the next one because they were in fight number two. But I am going with Malice on that one, and that's not out of bias because Malice is one of my favorite robots. But yeah, I like Malice in that one and just because like overall like Civilian Arc said that spinner has been hitting very hard so far and but I think this fight could be a 3 minute brawl at least. I think Gruff does have the durability to tank some of those shots, but it does depend on how well Gruff can get their robot repaired after the beating they just took in this one. As for Witch Doctor Minotaur, I said this after the discussion of Minotaur and Cobalt, but I predict this is going to be the battle for the 1 seed, at least. Both robots are 3-0. They've both been looking great so far. Or like but then, of course, there are other robots that could absolutely take the 1 seed. Because, like, we're going to talk about Sawblaze later in this one. Sawblaze has been looking great this season.
Yeah,
Robots
I
like
think
Riptide has been looking great, too. Same thing with, like, Huge, Quantum, Claw Viper. All of those robots have been looking great so far. Or, like, even though I am predicting Witch Doctor and Minotaur, whoever wins this fight's going to have the 1 seed, I could absolutely see one of those other robots getting the 1 seed as well. Because yeah, it's very competitive for that 1 seed spot. I think it's less obvious this season who's going to have it than what we saw in like previous seasons. So,
yeah,
but then kind of like relating to this fight, I am going to stay away from the controversy even though I have no doubt that they're going to bring it up once or twice or three times in the episode basically on what on the drama from their matchup number 2 because I choose to leave that behind and just talk about their upcoming matchup. But like Civilian Arc
yeah,
said, this one's a toss up, literally. Because like both robots have been hitting hard on their opponents so far. Both of them have the capability to take each other out. I think whoever wins this fight is going to be who drives the fight better between the two of them. And I'm going to lean towards Minotaur on this one, but like once again, that's a toss up. I think whoever makes the first big driving mistake is going to be the one to lose this fight. And also whoever can take advantage of the other's weaknesses better cuz I suspect Minotaur is probably going to try to go head on with Witch Doctor at first and try to knock it around the box like what they were doing last time. I bet Witch Doctor is going to try to take advantage of the gyroscopic forces that Cobalt was trying to take advantage of when they fought Minotaur. So regardless, I think that's going to be a beast of a fight, like what we got the previous two times, in my opinion. So a great one's coming. So
I do have a question for you, Green. With with this fight in mind, do you think part of Witch Doctor maybe used their forks this fight as like a practice game? Because do you think they might use their forks against Minotaur?
I could absolutely see that. Like I was actually thinking, could they possibly use the forks for this? The reason why I kind of think no is like with the extra bite that Minotaur has up front in their drum spinner. I think Minotaur would just chew up and take apart the forks pretty quickly. Because if I took a guess, I don't think those forks look to be as durable as, say, like the forks that Endgame brought when they fought Minotaur last season that got chewed up pretty quickly. But I could absolutely see Witch Doctor trying to use those forks once again, just because Minotaur outwedged Witch Doctor last time until they lost that wheel for that fight number 2. So I could absolutely see Witch Doctor coming in with forks for that one just to try to counter Minotaur with the wedge game if Minotaur does choose to come with forks for this fight. So it's a good question. What are your thoughts on it, at least?
I don't think they should use the forks, but if they did use the forks, I could see like the gruff fight as like a practice thing for the forks just to see how they drive with it and stuff. Because driving's definitely different in the battle box than in like the practice box. So it could have been practice for them, but I don't think that they're going to use forks there because, as you said, those forks don't look durable, and Minotaur could probably just get under them anyways. So
Yeah,
yeah,
they are like Gruff is a good practice opponent for it because I feel if they fought somebody like Black Dragon, maybe Black Dragon's like a great opponent to use forks on, at least just because of weaknesses we have seen, and that's one I could where like if Witch Doctor did get paired up with Black Dragon, I could absolutely see them using those forks in for that one and winning the fight that way. If you kind of get what I'm talking about, so.
yeah.
Yeah. Anything else on this fight, or should we get to Malice and Valkyrie?
To that fight.
Yeah, that fight. Okay, fight number 2. So we got to battle the horizontal spinners, Malice and Valkyrie. So Valkyrie coming in with their what I would say is my favorite spinner of the bunch. And I always have like a soft spot for Glory, the three tooth undercutter, and then Malice on the other side came with the drumstick, and then added some extra armor for their underside to like deflect shots from Valkyrie's spinner. And we got an interesting brawl of weapon on weapon action between those two robots, and eventually, like Chris and Kenny said, history emerged with this one because eventually we saw both robots lose drive on one side, and we got a judge's decision just because of lack of engagement. Valkyrie initially won the decision. Malice appealed and won the case. So, uh, talk about the fight at least. What are your thoughts on the fight, Civilian Arc? And we'll get to the judge's decision next.
The fight was pretty good. I was honestly shocked with how Malice just like took off Valkyrie's weapon like that because Malice has shown like very destructive features to it in the past year, but you never expect something like it to like just completely take off the weapon in a hit. Like that was pretty insane. And then I kind of just laughed for the rest of the fight because that thing happened.
Yeah. Yeah, this fight, I was expecting a lot of weapon on weapon action. I was expecting somebody's weapon to eventually break, like what we saw in like Valkyrie and Rotator, but I was not expecting Valkyrie's weapon to just get separated from the body like that. I'm guessing Malice broke like the gear or something and holding the weapon in place, like what happened in Valkyrie and Hypershock last season.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. So that's kind of my guess for what happened to Valkyrie right there. But then I'm not sure what happened to Malice's drive right there. My guess is it's probably just the hits that Valkyrie landed on Malice's frame. Valkyrie seemed to lose drive on one side. What I think actually happened there was that last hit right before Malice's weapon temporarily died, at least. Malice got a shot right on that wheel that they seemed to lose drive on, and I think it looked like that wheel was loose, so I'm guessing that's why Valkyrie only had drive on one side, at least. But yeah, so I don't think there's really much more to talk about, at least with the general fight there, because Basically, we saw a bunch of crab walking between two robots. Malice looked like they were trying to engage, at least from what was going on. But then before we start talking about the judge's decision, that was a great driving showing from David Lau, in my opinion, probably his best one so far this season. And all right, let's talk about the decision then. So yeah, if you don't or if you aren't aware of the rules, at least, one of the things Battlebots added for this season is they added like a challenge flag, basically, if you know the NFL well. If a judge's decision occurs where the team that didn't win the fight disagreed with the decision, basically, they felt they should have won the fight, they can appeal that one basically, where they explain their case to Mike Jeffries, and the judges look over the footage from all angles of the fight, and basically will see will like do they keep the decision the same, or do they flip it around, basically, if you kind of get the idea. So originally Valkyrie won by split decision, but then we got the appeal, and Malice ended up winning that and winning by a unanimous decision. So, Civilian Arc, what's your thoughts on the appeal there?
Yeah, so well, first off, that appeal they were correct to appeal, though I definitely would have done that as well. And one thing to take into consideration is I think there's going to be a bunch of appeals in like the late half of this of the regular season because there's going to be a lot of bots out there who are going into their third fight may lose controversially and may think, okay, if I go bounce back to 2-2, am I impressive enough to make the top 32? Because there's going to be a ton of top 2-2 robots in the top 32. I feel. Um, I definitely don't think it's going to be filled with 4-0s and 3-1s. So I think this was the right decision, and I was a little shocked when I heard Valkyrie win because it's just like you look at the fight and then you're like, okay, Malice won that, right? And then you're forgetting, oh wait, you're watching this on TV and the judges are only seeing this from one POV, so and they get to see it in all angles, and then they understand what's going on. So like, yeah, this was the correct call for the Malice team, and I think if they beat Gruff now, then they've got themselves a spot in the top 32. So this was a good decision by them.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, Lisa made an appearance on the Scorpios Builder blog, and she pretty much referenced exactly what Civ just said right there. Basically, like the judges only see it from one angle, and there seemed to be support for the appeal process just because, like, imagine if there was something they missed from the fight, basically, and and like the Malice team felt that the judges, or at least most of them, didn't notice something that they should have, and possibly what won and Malice the decision they felt. So, and I 100% support Bunny choosing to challenge this decision right there, and including the fact that she won at that decision. She gets to challenge another fight if there happens to be another decision that they're iffy about, basically. But like Civilian Arc said, I do expect there to be more challenges coming later on like combination of regular the end of the regular season where there are some really important matchups coming, and possibly even the bracket too, because there might be some teams that where they might choose to use their appeal just because why not, basically, or something like that, even though I predict they probably won't televise most of them just for timing purposes, but who knows what's going to go on involving that. But yeah, so I think that's probably enough to talk about with the appeal process. Talk about their next opponents. We've already talked about Malice and Gruff. Valkyrie's got Glitch for another opponent. Glitch has a fight with Triton coming a little bit later on in the qualifiers before these two face off. Valkyrie's currently at a 1-2 hole right now with only that win over Mammoth, and then losses to both Banshee and Malice. So Valkyrie's probably going to need to win this fight in order to make bracket, in my opinion. Glitch, on the other hand, is in a hole of their own right now. Even though that we do have a third fight coming, and with Triton, they still have two losses to Riptide and Lockjaw. So, what's your thoughts on that match, Civ?
Yeah, that fight's kind of be make and break for both bots because, as you said, like glitches at 2-0-2 and stuff. So, um, Valkyrie glitch, kind of depends on just the driving of Valkyrie because we've seen glitch deliver hard hits, especially the like horizontal spin or rotator. You've seen it take a big shot, and like the different and like I do think that like glitch can lose to other opponents that are horizontal, but I'm not sure it can lose to Valkyrie. Especially if Valkyrie is pretty susceptible to taking shots that can like rip their weapon off because glitch is very hard hitting. That's like it hits like a freight train. But I think it's a matter of can Valkyrie's weapon get under glitch. That'll be the deciding factor. If it doesn't, then glitch wins. If it does, then I can see Valkyrie cutting up the underbelly of glitch and winning. For now, I'm gonna say glitch, but it's a toss up. I feel.
Yeah. So I Glitch's big weakness so far, like both their losses have come from that they couldn't either self-right or drive upside down. Oh, at least. That was the cause I feel of both of their losses so far. Valkyrie and even their third opponent, Triton, are robots that probably can't flip Glitch over at least that easily. So I'm going glitch on this one because overall their drive looked really good in the lockjaw fight. It's just their inability to work while upside down, at least. And the weapon was hitting really hard too. I think Valkyrie's big objective should be try to get to the sides and the backside at glitch, but even Lockjaw couldn't really do that. Glitch's drive looked decent in that fight. I don't think Valkyrie's going to be able to outmaneuver Glitch. Like I fully expect to see some weapon on weapon action in this one, and I think it's going to come down to who can take the hits better between the two of them. And I kind of got to edge that one out to Glitch in this one, but yeah, that absolutely I think is going to be a really important match, a make or break fight for both robots. Because I'm probably going to predict right now that Glitch is going to come into this one at a 1-2 record. I think they can take out Triton, but even if Glitch doesn't win that fight, it's still a make or break fight for like both robots. So yeah, anything else on this one, or should we move on to fight number three?
We can move on to fight number three.
Fight number three, it is. Oh yes, this one. This was probably my favorite fight of the entire episode, in my opinion. Big Dill and Mad Catter, and I had a feeling this fight was going to be really competitive after seeing how well Big Dill performed in that fight with Scorpios. And sure enough, that is what we got. I'm gonna say right off the bat, regardless of win or lose, this was a really high quality match for honestly both robots, because both robots were working really well, and both of them were getting great moments, and the others getting a huge hits in, and we got a 3 minute brawl between these two robots, a 3 minute driving showdown between Emmanuel and Calvin. So I want to hear your thoughts on this one, Civ.
Yeah, this was a crazy fight because you see Big Dill get an under Mad Catter a couple times, and you're like, oh my god, is this going to be a legendary upset? And yeah, both bots had some really stellar moments, stellar driving by both bots, and yeah, it was very fun to see Big Dill doing good because we saw in a Scorpios fight that it does work really well. It's just susceptible to dying. But yeah, this is a really good Big Dill fight. Probably Big Dill's best performance, I think, in the entire series.
Oh yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but yeah, this was great driving by Calvin Eba as well. He definitely hung in there and managed to raise a comeback and got to win the fight, which was a pretty make or break fight for Mad Catter, I feel. So it's good that they got that 2-1 win, but yeah, great showing from Big Dill. Great showing from Mad Catter. It was just a really good fight.
Oh yeah, 100%. I'd probably say like what Big Dill said on social media recently. I would say they were probably winning those first 2 minutes. Like not by much cuz Matt Catter was having a bunch of great moments there too. But I think that last minute was really the deciding factor where I think Mad Catter was getting some of the more damaging shots in and won the fight that way. Is yeah,
So it's
this fight did go the full 3 minutes, and I think the fact that Mad Catter did a lot more damage to Big Dill, I think is what won them that fight. And
yeah,
but but like Civ said, that was amazing driving showcase from Big Dill. Like even though Big Dill is 0-3 right now, like definitely that one and the Scorpio's loss are like two high quality losses because Big Dill made both those fights just extremely competitive, and that's why I think out of all the winless robots right now, I'd say Big Dill and Emulsifier are kind of the two underrated winless robots because even though they
yeah.
haven't come out on top in any of their fights so far, they both have had some really high quality losses so far. So yeah. Sadly, I gotta say I don't think Big Dill's gonna make bracket even if they win their next fight. Hey,
Yeah.
even though I hope I'm wrong about that, because I think Big Dill could definitely make some noise in the bracket if they made it there. But I hope Big Dill comes back for another season because that thing looked awesome in this fight. Like definitely glad that Big Dill, because Big Dill was originally an alternate, but then Doom had to drop out for reasons that we've heard of, and Big Dill took their spot. So and we've been getting a lot of good showcases from Big Dill so far, and definitely was a great win for Mad Catter, and probably sealed their spot in the bracket. And we'll see. They'll probably be gunning for a higher seed as for that next fight with Lockjaw. So we'll see Mad Catter how they can get to repair lots of that damage that they took in this fight. But yeah, let's talk about their next opponent. So Big Dill's got free shipping, which should be an epic driving match between Emmanuel and Gary Jin. And Mad Catter and Lockjaw, another epic driving match between Calvin Eba and Donald Hudson. What are your thoughts on on those matchups, Civ?
So a big deal. I think kind of just depends on if Big Deal can survive the full 3 minutes because they're not knocking out free shipping. Like let's get that 100% clear. I don't think they can knock out free shipping, even though they've got this great vertical spinner lifter design for against free shipping. Well, that I do think they'll use the vertical design. Like I don't think they can knock out free shipping because it's just so damn hard to knock out a bot like free shipping. 'Cause, yeah, and I think if Big Dill can survive the 3 minutes, they win the fight. But that's the big question for Big Dill is like its reliability there because it does have the weapon, it has the ground game. Can it survive the 3 minutes? So if they can, then Big Dill wins that 100%, and if they can't, well, then they don't. Um, Mad Cat or Lockjaw? As a Lockjaw simp, I hate this matchup. Uh, I guess I guess Mad Catter wins, but I'm gonna be sad.
Yeah, for my takes on these, Big Deal and free shipping, that's another one like this one where I think like people are gonna look at this matchup and think that's not gonna be a good fight, but I think this one has potential to be a pretty good showdown between these two robots. And like Civ said, and I agree with him that I think it's gonna come down to how can Big Deal survive the full 3 minutes at least in the match because free shipping, like Civ said, is very hard to knock out. I think it's possible for Big Deal to do it, but I think it's very difficult at least. Because it took Hydra and Minotaur a while to cause free shipping to lose Strive, basically. And but yeah, I think the big advantages for each of these robots is Big Deal. I think they have the advantage in weapon power, at least. I think they have the more effective vertical spinner, definitely. Because I haven't been that impressed with Free Shipping's vertical spinner so far, but hopefully we get to see some action from it regardless. But I think Free Shipping is the more consistent, the more reliable robot between the two of them. For each, yeah, because like Big Deal lost their first two matchups just due to glitches and gremlins in the robot that caused them to die, basically. And they seem to really get those sorted out for this fight. And if they can keep it that way, I think they win this fight, and I'm going Big Dill for that one. As for Mad Catter and Lockjaw, definitely I'm going to go Mad Catter on this one as well. Definitely both these robots have the potential to win this fight. Both have seriously good ground game and quite a damaging weapon. I'm going Mad Catter on this one because Lockjaw seems to still be having lots of those weapon issues. Something goes off on the robot, like a speed controller or something, and that's my big concern for Lockjaw in this fight. And this is the fight where they're going to want to have that dialed in because if something like that occurs, they're not going to win this fight. And that's mainly why I'm going to vote Mad Catter to win this fight. But I'd love to see a Lockjaw victory, of course. So, anything else, or should we move on to the next one?
We can get to the next one.
Next one. Oh, this one. So we got the Pori Nug versus in the Green Square showdown here. So Jackpot and Ribot. So Ribot debuted the Undercutter as for this one, as I kind of expected they would, because I felt the Undercutter is probably the better configuration for this one, and Jackpot came in with a similar configuration to what they used against Rotator. I'm guessing because of uncertainty for what configuration Ribot was going to go with for this fight, and regardless, this was another awesome fight. We got a big 3-minute brawl between these two robots, and even while with only two wheels, Ribot still performed great in this one. And we got a really high quality showdown from both robots. So, Siv, you want to go ahead and share your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this was a really good fight. Both bots traded in some great hits. Jackpot's wheel snipe was really good, and I kind of laughed a bit when Robot was kind of just like had only like one half drive and was inverted, and it still managed to hit Jackpot so hard it almost flipped it. Uh, that was a good hit. But yeah, Jackpot just went into kill mode this fight and came out on top. It was a very destructive showing for Jackpot. Robot, it's sad to see it at 0-3, but it's not sad to see Pori's hopes and dreams go to 0-3. So it's good in the end. But yeah, good showing by Jackpot. Robot, it's unfortunate. Maybe they'll do good in a Golden Bolt or something. But yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because definitely coming into this fight, both robots were in a must-win situation, both at two losses so far against four difficult opponents, though. Oh, to say nonetheless, and yeah, Jackpot. I'd say David Jin definitely made some early driving errors where he kind of accidentally showed his wheels, and Jackpot used that reach from that vertical spinner to their advantage to snipe those wheels. And kind of as I was expecting, Jackpot was going to try to go for at least, and but we got proof that Jackpot's Self-Rider works so far because Ribot managed to flip them twice, just showing off the power in that undercutter at least. And Jackpot was able to self-right and keep going and keep laying some huge hits. I'm guessing that just the number of shots they took from Ribot's spinner is why they didn't have drive on one side. But yeah, so Jackpot ended up coming out with the judges' decision victory. I think the judges definitely got this one right. And yeah, Jackpot sitting at 1-2 almost certainly makes bracket if they win this next fight. Ribot definitely in a huge hole with this one, but I will admit that strength of schedule is definitely on their side with this one, and definitely they've had some pretty quality performances so far in those first two fights, and definitely this was a quality loss. I think if they could get a quality victory in this next one with Scorpios, they could maybe sneak into that bracket, but it's gonna be tricky though. Oh, so we want to talk about their
What?
next matchup, Civ?
Yeah. Before that, I'll be honest. This might be just for the fact I watched this episode at midnight, but I forgot this fight was a judge's decision. I thought Jackpot knocked out Robot.
Yeah,
uh,
they did have a countdown going at the very end, but then Ribot showed enough movement to turn off the countdown. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jackpot versus Captain Shredderator. I'm sorry. Sorry, that's all I gotta say. Sorry. Robot versus Scorpios. I think, I think Robot wins this. I'm not entirely sure, but I think it might be a bit. I think with the vert setup, Robot wins this, but I don't. They shouldn't go with the horizontal spinner. I feel because Scorpios is the killer of horizontal spinners. It eats that shit for breakfast. So I think Robot's best bet is the vertical spinner. I'm mixed on how it goes, but I think Robot wins it in the end. So yeah, I'm not sure if Robot makes the playoffs if it still wins this. If it does, it's like a 32 seed or something. But yeah,
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, as for Jackpot and Captain Shredderator, that's another really tough matchup for Captain Shredderator, and we already know it's gonna fight Riptide in the next episode. Where,
oh god,
yeah, I like those are
I'll be
two
honest.
really hard matchups for Captain Shredderator, and Quantum was
Can
already a hard enough opponent for it.
I make a prediction here?
Go for it.
I might actually swap Captain Shredderator in for an alternate. I think because I think Riptide might damage Captain Shredderator so much that they might not be able to repair in time to fight Jackpot.
Who knows? But yeah, because like I've been predicting that that fight's gonna result in a deshelling of Captain Shredder, just because of how hard Riptide hits. But I hope that's not the case. At least is because I have heard rumors that have heard at least a combination of rumors, and as well it was mentioned right before the hijinks fight that this might be Brian Nave's last season at Battlebots. So I'd want to see him go out with a bang, at least. And yeah, like I gotta go Jackpot on this one because Captain Shredder's reliability has definitely still been questionable this season, even though they did win their last fight with Hijinks. But yeah, so Ribbot and Scorpios, that's a tough one at least. What I predict is I think Scorpios is probably gonna go with the front armor configuration they used against Jackpot, basically. That's a combination of low ground and lots of magnets for lots of push power. And I bet Ribot probably goes with the vertical spinner, like Civ said, head right there. Because while I think the undercutter makes it a lot more of a better driving match between the two of them, Scorpios, like Civ said, is a great horizontal spinner counter. And so I gotta agree that I think the vertical spinner would probably be the better route. But we'll see Ribot, what the Ribot team, what their judgment is, what they choose to go with for this fight. I'm gonna lean towards Ribot on this one, but because like I think Ribot has the advantage unless if Scorpios manages to drop that overhead spinner and hit something important, similar to what happened in their fight with Copperhead a couple seasons ago, where simply was like one hit right into the drive area that managed to disable Copperhead. So uh, yeah, stuff like that is why I'm going to lean towards Ribot on this one, but I could absolutely see Scorpios pulling this one off too. So, anything else, or should we move on to the next one?
Or we can do the next one.
Next one. This
Oh god.
one.
Uh,
So basically, we got the battle. Well, originally it was going to be the battle of the hammer saws. Now we got the battle of a hammer saw versus an overkill blade. So, Sordios, I think is what Scorpios is calling their robot now coming into that. But yeah, so Scorpios came in with the overkill blade, like what they hinted at coming in for. Basically, they brought in that announced that they were bringing that in as a configuration and announced on this podcast, Robocast, and their own builder blog that for this fight they're going to be using the overkill blade. So if you don't know the strategy, basically Zach explained it very well, both in the like in all three of those podcasts, as well as the and as well as his interview where he was aiming to strike the weapon area of Sawblades, try to cut the belts with that thing and disable Sawblaze's weapon that way. So Enough talk about that at least. Civ, what was your thoughts on this fight then? And you can
This
talk about the
fight.
configuration at least. What your thoughts were on the idea of Scorpios' config?
So I understood the idea of it. I just didn't think Scorpios could really pull it off. I feel. Sawblaze is real quick, and it's just such a controlling and drive centered robot. Like its drive is very powerful. Its low ground is insane. It's kind of just hard to pull something off with against a bot like Sawblaze. And then for the fight itself, it went exactly how I thought it would go. They had like a good 5 or 10 seconds of vibing, and then Scorpios got stuck on the screws.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, like Civ said, like I like the idea that Scorpios had with using the overkill blade. Like I'm disagreeing with a lot of the haters out there that are talking about that Scorpios should have gone with the spinner rather than the overkill blade. This was a bad idea, is what lots of them were talking about. Like definitely I felt the idea was right because like I think if they went with the overhead spinner, I don't think the fight would have really gone much better for Scorpios.
Yeah,
Like
I think that's the thing
definitely
is
they could self-right better, like if they had the overhead spinner, but like I felt Scorpios wouldn't really be able to do much more though if they used the regular overhead spinner, like what Civ was trying to imply. What were you saying, Civ?
that's the thing is I kind of felt like whatever configuration Scorpios uses is kind of just like a lose lose situation. So just like use the weapon that is like the least important to use in a playoff season.
Oh yeah. Yeah, not to mention, like, one of the hits they got was pretty close to that weapon area. Like, it probably would not have disabled Sawblaze's weapon just because, like Zach said at the end of that interview right there, Sawblaze didn't spin the weapon until they scooped up Scorpios by the sides there. And yeah, which is like the perfect counter to this kind of strategy right there. Because even if Scorpios did strike the weapon area right where that belt is, they probably would not have cut the belt on Sawblaze's hammer saw. So yeah, I think definitely Jameson Go drove this fight very well because he took it because Scorpios what did seem to be having even with the magnets, they did seem to be having issues with weight distribution within the robot, especially when the overkill blade was in the back position. And Jameson took advantage of that pretty well, and then managed to ram Scorpios in the screws, struck the drive area with the hammer saw, and then tried to cut into the overkill blade, tried to slice it, got about halfway through it. So, uh, yeah. So, but one benefit I will say comes out of this, though, at least for Scorpios, even if this one might have been kind of a non-quality loss. I don't think they took too much damage in this one because Sawblaze got that one hit right in the underside and then took some shots into the overkill blade, but their Sawblaze didn't land that many big hits on Scorpios' drive area, and Scorpios probably didn't have too much internal damage after that fight, so like definitely I think that's something to say about that performance. So, yeah, I don't think there's really much more to talk about with this. Talk about their next opponents because both of them have pretty big opponents coming up next. Sawblaze has Hydra, which I imagine is going to have a really high seed tournament implication, and then Scorpios and Ribot have a showdown, and that one is definitely could be a make or break fight for at least Ribot, possibly Scorpios as well. So, Civ,
Yeah,
well, we already talked about Scorpios, Ribot. But what's your thoughts on Sawblaze and Hydra?
Sawblaze Hydra. Jake, you're my only hope here. Uh, I do think that Hydra can beat Sawblaze just because I think Hydra's the lower robot. Jameson's the better driver, and I think if Sawblaze gets under Hydra one time, it's over. But I think Jake Ewart's driving in low ground is good enough to the point where I don't think Sawblaze will have a chance to get under it. But if that does happen, it's game over for Hydra. I don't think Hydra can. Sawblaze's weapon is just so powerful, and if it gets into the internals, which well, Hydra may come in with like a top armor configuration. We don't know, but like if we're going by like the Hydra we usually see in Battlebots, I don't think Hydra can survive a shot from Sawblaze. Um. So yeah.
Yeah, my takes on this, basically, I think Hydra is going to do everything in their power to win the ground game in this one and try to win this fight similar to how they won the fight with Black Dragon, basically, from last season. I suspect Jake is probably going to go the route of sit in place, let Sawblaze come to them, basically, because that's kind of Jameson's strategy, at least. But I will agree with Civ that I think if Sawblaze gets underneath Hydra once, I don't think Hydra can survive more than like 1 to 3 blows from such a powerful hammer saw attack like Sawblaze. So I am gonna lean towards Hydra on this one, but that's another one where it's a toss up, in my opinion. And Sawblaze is another robot that I think if they win this fight, they could possibly get the 1 seed in the tournament because Sawblaze has looked quite good for the most part in all 3 of their fights so far. And definitely strength of schedules there. So definitely Sawblaze is another robot to watch as for robots that could take home the giant nut this season because that thing's been looking great this year. So should we move on to the next one then, Civ?
Yeah.
Let's move on. Okay, so Hijinks and Ripperoni. So Ripperoni coming off of a fight that got them a lot of momentum with that victory over Endgame, and Hijinks coming off of a bit of a disappointing loss to Captain Shredderator. But before we start talking about this fight, we gotta talk about that opener, which we
Oh
had discussed up
God.
to now.
I
Like
forgot all about that.
I gotta admit, like while I felt that was kind of a bit of a cheesy opener, or no pun intended, right there. But like, I really admired it. I like the creativity involved with it, and I think it was an awesome thing to start the episode with. So I don't know if you
BattleBots
agree or
had
disagree, but
it was it was funny for sure. BattleBots doesn't really use the cold open strategy that much anymore since like 2018. So like whenever they do use the cold opens, it's usually funny. Like the save a bot thing was very hilarious.
yeah, I like that one, but I wish they moved it to the next episode. Just because I think that was the episode where Rotator took out Ace from Jackpot and Riptide took out Gassy Cat. And I felt that would have been
oh
really
yeah,
well timed if they threw that at the beginning of the episode. But it was funny regardless. I'm really glad they did it regardless. So, uh,
yeah. This
but
was that was a funny opening for sure.
But yeah, back to this fight then. So Hijinks coming in with I believe the same configuration they used against Big Dill, at least, and seemed to be working well for the most part until it wasn't going so well for them until they started taking huge hits. Ripperoni came in with basically some extra front armor, as you can see right on that image right there, which is their horizontal spinner configuration according to the team, and definitely Fred did a phenomenal job driving this match for Ripperoni. And what are your thoughts on it, Civ?
Yeah, I was. It was. I was kind of concerned about Ripperoni because I didn't know how its horizontal configuration would do, and then it did that, which was I think it like almost like had Hijinks like entire top frame just like crack open, right?
Yeah.
It got close to there, but that was a good showing by Ripperoni. It's so goddamn powerful. It was like even I thought Hijinks was gonna win that fight. I'll be real, but Ripperoni is not a joke robot. It showed that in the endgame fight, and it's showing that here. And I think that was a really good showing from Ripperoni. Kind of unfortunate for Hijinks, but they might come back in their fourth fight. You never know. But yeah, really destructive from Ripperoni.
Absolutely. And yeah, basically my take on this one, Ripperoni proved that that fight with Endgame was in no way like a fluke, basically. Like what some of us might have been predicting with this fight with Hijinks right there. Because Ripperoni just continuing to build up the momentum and showing how well like all the new tech that they were showing off in that robot works. Because yeah, like Civ said, they managed to crack open and expose the internals on one side. And if I took a guess, I bet that fire we saw in Hijinks, if I took a guess, I bet that was a speed controller that caught fire in Hijinks. But I expect Jen's probably going to come out with a video talking about this fight on their YouTube channel. So absolutely check that out if they do that and when it comes out. So it was another destructive performance from Ripperoni, and hopefully Ripperoni continues that because they got another step up opponent for for their next fight with Copperhead. And Hijinks definitely has some work to do at least because sitting at 1-2 right now, two losses that probably weren't that quality of losses, and a win in my opinion that was okay, but definitely had a
Yeah,
lot of issues to work out. So I think Hijinks probably needs to not just win this fight, but probably needs a quality victory too. Who with
yeah,
that fight with Switchback. So what are your thoughts on
it's
the
kind
fight, Civ?
Hijinks is kind of in the same boat as Valkyrie, where it can't just win; it has to win very impressively. And against Switchback, it is possible, but Switchback had a lot of potential going into the season, and it hasn't really lived up to it that much. Has Switchback even had its second fight yet?
It's had two fights. It won against Banshee and then it lost to Death Roll.
Yeah, okay, so
Yeah, they have a
the death
third
roll.
fight coming. I don't remember who it is against though.
But yeah, I think I see Switchback winning that fight, but I don't know. I if Hijinks is working correctly, Hijinks could definitely take that fight because Switchback. We haven't seen Switchback against a horizontal spinner yet, so it'd be interesting to see how it goes. Ripperoni versus Copperhead. Copperhead wins that easily. I don't want to pick on the Ripperoni team in any way, but I don't see them beating Copperhead. Copperhead's insane. It's not even that it's low; it's just weapon is low, and that's the whole gimmick of its ground game is that its drum is the wedge, and that's gonna be hell for Ripperoni to counter against him. I think the only way Copperhead loses that fight is if it has any like driving gremlins and Ripperoni counters on that. Other than that, I see Copperhead beating Ripperoni in pretty dominant fashion.
Yeah, yeah. So my takes is for Hijinks and Switchback. That's another one where I think I gotta agree with Civ. I think it's a must-win scenario, a make or break situation for honestly both robots. Switchback's currently at 1-1 right now. They do have a third fight with Ominous, as for what I just looked up, coming soon. So that one, they have two big fights coming as for Switchback. For this one, I'm
Did
probably
you
gonna lean towards
did you
Hijinks on this one,
okay to
but
go
that
to
that
run
one could be an
ahead?
interesting one. So, and once again, a must-win situation for both robots. So.
Sorry
As
about
for
that.
Ripperoni and Copperhead, definitely I agree with Civ that I think if weapon on weapon exchanges are going to be won by Copperhead in this one, and I think Copperhead's definitely going to control the brunt of the fight. However, I am concerned that on because Copperhead, I feel, while I think they have the advantage weapon wise, I think Ripperoni could win this fight by simply just outlasting Copperhead at least. Because like their drive looked pretty solid in the Triton fight, but then their drive had some issues in the Bloodsport fight, their first match. And Copperhead has definitely been susceptible in past seasons to taking so many weapon on weapon impacts from spinners and then losing drive. Take like Witch Doctor from last season, Gigabyte from couple seasons ago. Like, that's my big concern for Copperhead, but I think it could be its downfall, but I'm still going to go Copperhead on this one. I like how Copperhead's been performing this season, and its third fight with Kraken is coming next episode. And based on what Kraken has said on social media, because like it sounds like they got their drive issues sorted out with the help of Rory from Monsoon. Uh, I think that could be a really competitive match, and I think we'll really get to see the Copperhead in that one, because I think somebody pointed out that Copperhead I don't think it's gotten it more than a minute and a half of Battlebots time basically. So hopefully we'll get to see a bit more in this upcoming match. So yeah.
Copperhead's pretty much like the vertical spinner version of a full body spinner. It's just it's all drama.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Should we move on to the main event?
Oh god, the main event.
Oh yeah, the main event. Yeah, so we got a rematch from the 2018 season, and no, not 2018, 2020, Endgame and Hypershock, where yeah, last time basically those two robots went weapon on weapon. Hypershock flipped over, Hypershock died, and that was the fight. And this one, relatively the same, I felt, but then Hypershock got a little bit of action in at least, got a couple moments of their own in, and it was a longer fight. So, Civ, you just want to share your thoughts on it?
So this fight kind of went exactly how we expected it to. Endgame launched Hypershock up in the air, and then it lost a wheel. One thing I noticed, like right at when the countdown starts, you can literally see Hypershock's drive chain fall out. Like if you replay the fight, you can literally see Hypershock's like the side that Hypershock's wheels are touching the ground. You can see their drive belt just leave. And that's when you're like, oh, yeah, Endgame wins this because, it can't drive that side. So, yeah, it was a pretty dominant victory by Endgame. Hypershock. It's sad to see a bot like Hypershock at 1 and 2 because it's in no means a bad robot. It's just gotten so good where they have to give it a pretty tough schedule, and now it's facing the repercussions of that.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah, so Kyle from Hypershock came out with a damage report recently. Did a very good job with that report. It's very well detailed about like what was going on before the fight and what happened after the fight. Basically, an overall summary of it. Hypershock seemed to be having issues getting ready for this one, at least for part of it, because basically Kyle mentioned they always have two functional Hypershocks ready, basically, and sure enough, one of them, when they went to the test box, basically, it sounded like they were having internal problems with it, and apparently their switch caused them to have a bunch of issues and caused the melting of wires and nearly caused fires within the rest of their internals. So they ended up having to move over to that second robot at least. They didn't change their configuration or anything like that, though. So glad that Hypershock was able to get ready, though, and get into the box and put up this much of a fight, though. And yeah, pretty much this just went exactly as I expected it to. We saw lots of weapon-on-weapon action, and Endgame won a lot of those weapon-on-weapon hits. At least Hypershock got a moment or two in there, but then pretty much once Hypershock started losing wheels and taking damage to that frame, and then eventually got stuck on their side. And like Civ said, you saw right at the end there when Hypershock was trying to free themselves. One of their drive belts or drive chains broke, and that's why they couldn't move from there and eventually got caught out. However, what Civ didn't point out, though, that Endgame apparently that Kyle actually announced in this damage report, basically. Apparently, Endgame got stuck in the floor once again at the end of that fight. So imagine what would have happened if Hypershock was able to get back upright, and the community would have gone nuts over that if Hypershock managed to win the fight like that. And, hey, Mantine.
Oh fuck! I missed Ripperoni fight. Okay, well, yeah, game did in game.
Yeah, I was
It's
talking about
Mantine.
how Hypershock, if they would have been able to right themselves, they might have actually pulled off the victory in this one. Since Kyle mentioned in their damage report, the endgame apparently got stuck in the floor at the end of that fight once again.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I think Hypershock will still be fine. They should beat Claw Viper. I mean, Claw Viper's been impressive this season, but I don't think it's beating Hypershock impressive exactly.
oh yeah, definitely. Uh, yeah, I also found it funny that endgame scores were so low that they scratched up the paint on the red square too, which was kind of funny, but.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kyle mentioned the damage on Hypershock was pretty rough on this one. Uh, we saw the wheel damage, which they say is not too hard for them to replace, but basically there was a lot of frame damage, and I imagine a lot of internal damage done to that robot, and definitely Hypershock's got their work cut out for them as we're preparing for that next fight with Claw Viper. But like Mantine said, I think if Hypershock wins that fight, I think they're in the bracket, and maybe even if they get a quality performance in against Claw Viper, maybe they still make bracket. Just like it's like they had some quality moments in both losses to Sawblades and this one. So
This is that fight's gonna kind of be a lose-lose situation because you want to see Claw Viper get 4-0 because that's just like a dream come true seeing a grappler bot like Claw Viper who's been performing so well get 4-0. You
yeah.
also don't want to see Hypershock get to a losing record and possibly out of the top 32. So
Oh yeah, definitely. Uh, yeah, let's talk about their next opponents then. So Endgame currently sitting at 2-1, probably makes bracket at this point, but could go for a higher seed if they win that fight with Gigabyte, who is their next opponent. Gigabyte's currently sitting at 0-2 right now. They got a fight with Star Child coming in a couple episodes, but and then Hypershock taking on Claw Viper. Claw Viper, who has come out of nowhere this season and currently undefeated at 3-0, and that's a fight I'm really looking forward to. So, what's our thoughts on both those matchups? And then,
so
Mantine, we'll move
so
back to Ripperoni and Hijinks since it sounds like you had something you wanted to say about that one.
No, no, I was just gonna hit you with the obligatory, Rip Bozo, Ripperoni's gonna win the nut, all that. But that's the whole gist. We don't have to move back to it.
okay, so Hypershock Valkyrie, not Hypershock Valkyrie, Hypershock Claw Viper. I think if there's one thing Claw Viper really needs in this fight, it's top armor. Because if Claw Viper gets under and gets Hypershock flipped on its head, Hypershock, I don't think Will Bales cares if it's inverted at that point. Because Hypershock's weapon hits very hard. So I think Claw Viper may need top armor to counter Hypershock's weapon. Because I feel like if it gets a few hits on Claw Viper's top, it could get some good damage in. Um, I also think that I think Will Bales, because these robots are both really fast, and I think it might be hard for Hypershock to just get away from Claw Viper at points, because Hypershock does seem to have gyro problems at points. It can gyro itself upside down and stuff. But so I'm gonna go with the upset actually and go Claw Viper for this one. And Endgame Gigabyte, Bozo Mantine.
No, Gigabyte is dead to me at this point. We're moving on from that. Moving on from that one. I'm gonna be honest.
Well, my takes on this: Endgame and Gigabyte. Uh, sorry to your used to be favorite robot Mantine. Yeah, I think Endgame is gonna slaughter Gigabyte in this one, unfortunately. I'm expecting Endgame's probably gonna come out quick with a box rush, and think they're gonna very quickly send Gigabyte flying out of control, and I think we're gonna see a quick knockout from Endgame in that one, because I'm not sure how well that full body spinner can take hits, especially to the underside of a robot like a robot like Endgame, and yeah, you kind of get the idea. Hypershock Claw Viper. That's one where I'm really excited for that one because that's a battle between probably the two fastest robots in the entire field, and This one's definitely going to be a challenge for Will Bales, because, like, his strategy for the previous few seasons has been use Hypershock's speed to dictate the pace of that match. Problem is, I'd probably say Claw Viper is the faster robot between the two. I think Hypershock's gonna have a harder time dictating the pace of the fight. But I think Hypershock's big advantage is that with the vertical spinner, they have a better chance of doing damage, and that's probably the hardest hitting weapon that Claw Viper has fought so far this season. So yeah, Claw Viper Kevin's definitely been on point so far this season. He's gonna be really need to be on point with this match right here, because I think if Hypershock gets even one good hit on Claw Viper, I think it's just gonna be game over for Claw Viper, because Hypershock's probably gonna hit him time and time again and win the fight by KO. So I'm gonna lean towards Hypershock on this one, but like Civ said, I honest in heart I want to see Claw Viper win this one. I want to see a control bot go 4-0 in spinner favored competition. So I think it'd be really awesome to see a control bot like Claw Viper go undefeated in the qualifying round and enter the bracket with a high seed. Like that'd be incredible to see. So yeah, so anything else really to talk about with this one?
Um, I I think that you bring up a very good point. Hypershock and Will Bales in general like to try to circle their opponents and try to get around to the side of them to get good size on the shots before eventually sometimes Will Bales will just kind of resort to trying to punch things really hard and hope it works. And I think it's going to be more one of those fights where they just kind of have to fucking blitz themselves into Claw Viper's face, hope they get under and break something important if they do. As for the in-game fight, I think that something more so like maybe last year's Gigabyte would have even a hope at this, because in-game's not the fastest of robots, and it seemed to handle tantrums, assaults, and to a lesser extent hypershocks until it kind of broke itself. But this year, there's not a hope for Gigabyte. They have a new robot, which of course I can understand. They completely released Eternals, and the very questionable driving that they've shown this season leaves me with a very, very sour taste in my mouth, and I think this should be a pretty easy win for Endgame.
Fair enough. Anything from you, Civ?
No, I don't got anything.
All right. We're gonna move back to this. Mantine, what do you got to say about this since we got the time?
I'm so fucking glad Ripperoni works, man. I love Ripperoni so much. I love the team. I it was this was very not. I don't know. I don't dislike hijinks, but I feel like a lot of people have grown a lot of resentment toward it just because of how consistently disappointing it's been. And this definitely didn't help their case, because Ripperoni absolutely fucking blasted them into every wall, every corner, everything. I'm really glad that Ripperoni's working. I hope they go far. I don't know how they're going to do against Copperhead, but Ripperoni's quickly becoming one of my new favorites just by watching it. It's really entertaining, and the team's cool, and the robot's cool. Rip Bozo.
Yeah, there always seems to be rookies to really watch out for. Like last season, it was Riptide and Glitch. This season, I think it definitely could be Ripperoni.
Yeah, for sure.
The win against Endgame was pretty solid, even though the Endgame did get stuck in the kill saws very early in that match. And then this one just really backs up the case that Ripperoni's been doing well. And I think that's fight with Copperhead is going to be like the next big test for Ripperoni as for how well they can take it to some of the high tier opponents before bracket. Because I think Ripperoni probably made bracket with that victory, but who knows? We'll find out. So. Yeah. So, anything else from any of you guys before, or should we close out the podcast?
That's it for me.
Yeah, so that'll do it for this podcast. So, thanks for watching this video. Like, subscribe as usual. Subscribe to Civlian Arc and Captain Mantine. Their YouTube channels will be linked down below in the description. Both of them make some fun content, even if they haven't posted, and who knows how long. Yeah. be sure to wish Civlian Arc a happy birthday, because today, as when we recorded this, happened to be its birthday. So comment down below. So, yeah, once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time for the next podcast. Bye.